All right, everybody, we are back. Lunch break is complete, and we are set to begin the afternoon 4 games back in the WoW division. Yes, elephant in the room. No Nigel in this game, but he is going to be coming in the very next round, going up against Jon Shreve, who is closest to him in the standings right now. Jason Lee, John's opponent in this game, is in third. Will Anderson here, as I have been all along throughout the first 3 days of play. But for this afternoon session, I am joined by my good friend, top expert for at least a decade, I don't know how long, Rafi Stern. Rafi, welcome into the broadcast. Very excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Will. And I'm super excited to do commentary for such a wonderful event. Can't wait to do this game. Can't wait to see Nigel on stream again. And yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Wow, look at this start to the game, though. Jon with monthly on his rack. He finds it. I wonder what he could possibly be thinking. I guess he's wondering whether to put the H or the Y on the double letter square. Oh, he's going with the M. This could be a nice choice, Rafi, for defense.
Yeah, I guess he just doesn't really want to choose the other one for whatever reason, because the O would be next to the double. So yeah,
sacrificing
slapped it down right away.
Just a 2-point sacrifice seems okay, I guess. And now, though, Jason with waftings on his rack. This is not a valid word, I don't believe. So this is a really brutal situation for him. And I feel like ing words, Rafi, are really tough to keep straight.
Yeah, ing words are very tough. We've seen it happen in some other games. Jackson did not put an S on an ing word, and that was valid in the end game. So yeah, it's very, very tricky to keep straight. Every time you have an ing word, you're gonna think, can I put an S on it? Can I not? And sometimes it just comes down to the Ori method of coming up with a story, and other times it comes down to just taking a guess and hoping you're right based on common sense.
Yeah, that Ori method we actually saw come into play when he played Toasting in an earlier game. I think it was against Nigel, in fact, and he even got to recite his rhyme to Nigel after the game, which is is that the first time Nigel Richards has ever had an ing pluralization rhyme recited to him post-game? Might have seen a world first.
I think it might have been the second time, because I actually heard that his mother would say those nursery rhymes to him when he was a child. And so not the first time he's heard those, but the first time he heard them over the board.
Nice. That explains a lot. And to Jason's credit, he has gotten off of the idea of playing waftings, which he had lined up. And I really thought he was going to go for that. And that would create a very tough challenge situation for Jon. Jon is a great player in second place here, but he's not Nigel Richards, the only player that I would fully expect to know the validity of every ing, plural or non-plural. So it's tempting, if I'm Jason, to go for it and just hope that Jon does not challenge it. That would be a really tough challenge for him to make. It seems like he's not considering that here, going with something safer. He has Wig set up on his rack. I'm not 100% sure where he would want to play that. Another thought that could create more word confusion, Rafi, would just be something like Wifty to the Y of monthly, which looks like it might create an S hook for Swifty, but that also is not a valid word. Oh, here we go.
Oh, is he going to do it with the S or without? Oh, he holds back, potentially wisely, potentially unwisely, depending on what Jon would have done. But now he gives Jon back a double-double. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
What a start to the game for Jon.
Refrains. Yeah, he's got it lined up immediately. Before you mentioned that, Rafi, I thought maybe there's a chance that Jon plays Waftings and Sierran, and Jason almost certainly challenges that immediately, or else he would have played the S himself. So clearly Jason would have correctly challenged the S hook there, but no need to go for it with such a big play available for Jon. And this is not the start at all that Jason needs here, really badly needing a win in this game to have any chance at all of catching Nigel Richards.
Well, what's kind of funny now is that with such a big deficit, Jason might actually try S-hooking wafting, because oftentimes the best time to get away with a phony is when it puts your opponent still up by a large enough margin such that if they challenge it and lose a turn, then they could be in jeopardy of losing the game, or of the game becoming a lot closer. But if you're still up by 100 after your opponent phonies, it can be really hard to challenge and not just, make a play and take an 130-point lead. So it could come into play later in the game depending on how the rest of it goes.
That is a great point. That would be crazy to see too. Jason eventually feel motivated or required even to try to put an S hook on the word that he correctly left it off to start the game. Game situations change, and we'll see if he winds up ever needing to go for it there. It would be really funny to see that. Looked like he was considering vote, which would open the board a little bit, just playing right on top of the R of refrains. This feels like a really tough turn, Rafi. It's hard for me to come up with a great candidate play that doesn't use my E, which I would normally love to keep.
Yeah, for sure. It would be really nice if there was some play down to the A in refrains to hit that triple, but it doesn't really look like there's any good option there. Jason was also considering playing Dove to leave the slightly more synergic TNS. But I think it's okay to play Veto or Vote. Probably Veto to put an E into space to give himself a better chance of bingoing.
Yeah, it's a good point. Vote and Veto both in the same spot here. Why not float the E just in case Jon plays somewhere else? Maybe you are happy to have it. But actually, to your previous point, Jason really trying to max out on his bingo chances with the slightly better NST. That is a better bingo leave than NDS. So maybe reasonably or correctly, deciding that he needs a bingo ASAP here, and maxing out on that chance is the way to go. And back over to Jon. He's got that Q, Rafi. We hate this Q, but there have definitely been varying approaches we've seen on stream to dump it ASAP or be patient and try to get better opportunities for it.
So the Q, I came up with this analogy a few days ago, and after the Roy Hibbert analogy, I got a little bit more excited about this one. So I feel like the Q is kind of like Boban Marjanovic, the basketball player. So for those of you who don't know, Boban is like one of the tallest players who is in the league. He got almost no playing time, but when he did, he was incredibly efficient, like more efficient than Tim Duncan, more efficient than Shaq, more efficient than almost anyone. And that's kind of like the Q. The Q, most of the time, you don't want in the game, you don't want at all. But every now and then, you can plop it down for 40 points, for 60 points, and it's incredibly efficient. So I think the Q is the Boban Marjanovic tile of Scrabble.
That is a shockingly apt analogy. I actually can't believe how well that fits. In part also because the Q and Boban, if you were to, as a basketball coach, if you were to play Boban too often, his flaws would be horribly exposed. He has no lateral movement. He is a traffic cone on defense. He just isn't fluid on the floor, but he is like an automatic bucket under the basket if you can get him in the right situation. So yeah, deploying him wisely. As we see Jason play Fatwa for 45 points, that is definitely a great play by him to dump his F and W for a lot of points. But I love that analogy, Rafi. I've not heard that one, but I'm going to use it often. But an interesting play by Jon previously of Band Dog there, leaving QE. I really like his choice to play through and not necessarily dump the Q. I mean, his only real place to do it was right on top of refrains. So I like the patience by him to block the triple, not over index on, I have to get rid of the Q right now. And he scored pretty well while he's at it. And now, of course, still with the Q to deal with, he does get a blank for his efforts. So I wonder what he should do here. You can play through with Wooer off of the W of Fatwa, or you could just exchange and try to get a bingo ASAP. Both of those feel pretty reasonable to me.
I think playing Wooer is probably the best choice here. There's four four U's unseen, and with the blank in hand, it makes the Q, a lot easier to use. If he draws a U, he actually has a decent chance of hitting a bingo. And in general, the Q just won't be too hard to unload. But I wouldn't hate an exchange here either.
Yeah, we'll see. If you exchange, I guess some interesting nuances of, do you keep ER blank or do you keep an O along with that? The O maybe kind of pairs nicely. Yeah, he keeps an O. I feel like weirdly that's kind of a decent combination to play off of the F of Fatwa. I feel like the O helps you get FOR words maybe a little more often that just hit really hard on that top row, Rafi.
Yeah, normally the O is not a tile you want to keep on an exchange, but if you look at the tiles available to play through, they're pretty much all constants. The M, the H, the L, the T, the F. Every tile to play through for H is a consonant except for that A. And given that, the O actually gains a little bit of value. But I think I still would have exchanged down to ER blank, but keeping the O is probably only a tiny misstep, if that at all.
Yeah, it's a good acknowledgement by Jon of what you said, where he's really aiming for consonants here, whether it's the F or the H. So knowing that you don't have that many good vowels to work with, it could make sense here. But as you say, definitely a bit of an unusual choice, but could be warranted. And I like that he adjusted his play like that. Meanwhile, back to Jason, who finds himself in more trouble than he probably realizes. Not only is he down by over 100, but his opponent has the first blank and a Z on his rack together, those goodies that really Jason's hoping to be able to get himself. Wonder what he's thinking about. He has PON set to the side. Maybe he's just going to play Pong, which that is kind of an agonizing play to make at this score, Rafi, scoring only 16. You really would love to either bingo or score a little better.
Yeah, this is not a spot that I would envy being in at all. Really, no good scoring options. The fishes aren't even that good either. Leaving ENLS is a good bingo leave, but it's not a great bingo leave. And again, with mostly consonants to play through, it could be a little bit tricky to hit. But yeah, I think Pong looks like a good option here. I don't really see much better. So I wouldn't hate doing that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's how Scrabble works. Sometimes you got 4 or 5 plays, all of which feel appealing for different reasons. And then sometimes you have no play that feels appealing for any reason, but you have to do something to advance the game. And certainly Jason's going to play a word. There's no need to exchange. It's just that the words that you're going to put on the board here are kind of uninspiring. So Loon maybe is now on his radar, something up here. Maybe the idea behind that is it obstructs a little bit less of the future of the board. You might want to keep this area open in case you draw a bingo from the M or from the H. Those are going to be great bingos for you to hit because they throw so much of the board back open. So Jason may be saying, well, Pong is a decent play, but if I happen to draw a bingo from the M, it's just what I need to open things up again. But meanwhile, Rafi, Jon is potentially sitting poised like a cobra, ready to strike with an absolute gigantic blow. Some of you in the chat have seen Frozenly, if he sees it, is going to be insane for him and almost put the game out of reach immediately.
Yeah, that would be a monster play. And I think there's a very good chance that Jon will see and play it very quickly. it looks like he enjoys alphabetizing his rack as many top players do. Whereas some players will kind of telegraph what they're going to play ahead of time by arranging it in the order of the bingo. But he's sitting there just waiting to see what Jason does, and I would not be surprised if he puts down Frozenly within 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah, no need to wait whatsoever if you see it. So we're about to find out. Jason with a good long think, and I do feel like it's very common to, oh, look at that. Look how quick. Cobra-like reflexes from Jon Shreve as he's about to hit insanely hard with this play. And people in the chat, Rafi, are speculating, could this possibly justify a challenge from Jason here, as he really badly needs this word to not be good if he's going to have any chance at all to win this game? Yeah.
If I was in this spot, I would definitely consider challenging for sure. Unless I was 99% sure or more, it's just you lose the game. You lose the game if it's a word, and you have a fighting chance if it isn't. So, Frozenly, you know, probably a word, but it sounds a little bit weird. And, you know, any play over 100 points, you're not sure of at this stage. You just have to challenge.
Yep. Totally sensible decision, unless you are somehow absolutely 100% sure. You really need to be as sure as you could possibly get in any word to not challenge this one, given not just the game scenario, but also the tournament scenario, where if you're going for the win here, Jason basically needs to win this game and continue to win many more games, including some against Nigel Richards, if you're going to have a shot at this thing. So makes sense to challenge. Tough outcome for him and tough game, as it's back over to Jon. Not the best tiles for him, but what a time to draw some weak tiles when you're up by 219 points, Rafi.
And what's going to happen now in the game is that Jon actually might want to start thinking about trying to go for a lot of spread, because he's in second place. He's down by 3 games, but he's down by around 1,200 spread. And if he wants to catch Nigel, he's either going to have to pass him in games or pass him in spread. And it might be easier to pass him in spread. So if he can somehow pull off a 300 or 400 point win there, that'll go a long way toward cutting the spread he desperately needs.
It's a very good point. Don't necessarily see that on this particular move he has a play that allows him to run the score up any more or less. In fact, the weird thing is that one of his natural plays here to sort of remove the duplicated letters from his rack might be beat or something like that. That's how poor Jon's post bingo draw was. And this would give a bingo back to Jason. So the T's out in space, giving back petunias, or I suppose supinate, depending on where they land on the board. I'm assuming that without any really good offensive option, Jon is probably going to try not to open the board very much. But it feels like several of his plays might give Jason a bingo response.
Yeah, another option that he might play is a motet or mott, and both of those throw T's into space as well. It's hard to find a good scoring play that doesn't throw a T into space. So he might end up giving Jason a little bit of a boon here.
Yeah, so plenty of time for Jon, which makes sense given that he's hit 3 bingos to start, which he's found pretty much instantaneously in each case. He's only had 5 turns in the game. 3 of them were bingos. 1 was an exchange of the cue, and the other was Bandog holding the cue. So I feel like he is definitely ahead of schedule. And there we go. Not wanting to open anything new back to Jason. B at the top of the board. Seems reasonable, Rafi. The board is pretty tough to bingo or score on right now, and that play by Jon does nothing to change that.
Yeah, I like that decision a lot. He doesn't have any reason to play the other plays we were talking about. And so keeping it closed and getting rid of the triplicate tile is a great play. And he's now drawn into another bingo.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it plays.
Yeah, might not play. Jason playing Pa underneath the Z, scoring well with the P for a good number of points. Funny because had he played the other play he seemed to be considering of lineup right here, opening the board a little more aggressively, we would see Jon bingo again. Not the straightest line I've ever drawn. I can improve on that. I actually can improve on this on both counts with my, oh no, he spun the board. But lineup here, yes, thwarted indeed, would be met with outrate. There we go. An arrow, a real honest to goodness arrow. So no bingo opportunity for Jon. He's going to be able to balance his rack or continue to play the waiting game and not open much back. He could play outie in this spot. Looks kind of nice, Rafi, to score decently on double the T's and not open anything new.
That's a pretty play, and I like it a lot. ART is a good leave. With all one pointers, you're kind of stuck not really being able to score a lot of points easily, and you're mostly either fishing for a bingo or trying to find a good overlap. And outie is the best way to score points, and I think you should take it.
Yeah, there are definitely other options. Just out in a different game scenario, something like out would be very tempting, holding a really nice bingo leave. If you just take the rest, you have the leave of rate, setting up your A as a hook right here in case you draw a bingo with A in early position. That would definitely be a solid play in many game scenarios, but not when you're up by 200 points and just want to keep things on lockdown heading into the second half of this game. So yeah, we'll see what Jon elects to do. Sometimes it's tough, Rafi, when you go up by 200-ish or a really, really big score to continue to sort of grind and make really good reasoned decisions, because you kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit, which is only natural given the sort of marathon nature of these Scrabble tournaments.
Yeah, especially when you have a tough turn like this where you don't really have any obvious options, you don't have any good scoring options. It's kind of hard to decide what to do, because you know you're going to win the game, but you need to try to win by as much as you can, and remaining focused and not just speeding your way to the end of the game. It can be really difficult.
So we'll see. Looks like Jon now setting up EAU. This would be if he plays this here, I suppose. I guess you could also play it on top of, yeah, there we go. So playing it on top of the letters in monthly seems to block a little bit. I think this does maybe slightly reduce Jon's odds of getting yet another bingo with that ORTT leave, but it continues the theme of not opening much back to Jason. So I don't hate it on that basis.
And Jason lays down Unai, takes it back. He was looking to set up an S hook really quickly, but then changed his mind. Are you laughing because of what Jon drew?
Yeah, a little bit. So another good draw for Jon. With that, again, I mentioned that the leave is not great, but I guess it doesn't look like Jon has anything here, or does he now? Hold on. Let me just make sure that I'm caught up. Unai is the play for Jason. I got to give him his points. 10 points, all of 10 points. If you're Jon and you're seeing Jason score 10 points on a move when he desperately, needs bingos, you're probably feeling like, are you feeling only good, or do you feel any pity for your opponent in this situation, Rafi?
No pity, no pity. Run up to score as much as you can. Maybe feel pity if it's the final game of the tournament and they're trying to win too. But at this stage, you gotta keep pedal to the metal. You can't have pity until it's over.
Fair enough. Makes a lot of sense. We are here to compete after all. So yeah, have to, I mean, the on the human level, it's okay to feel those things, especially if your opponent is a friend. And I do feel like, in general, a lot of us at the high level in, like, I'm sure that a lot of the games between players in both the WoW and Collins divisions are between people who are very friendly. But when the game is in progress, it's about trying to win the game. And if you're winning by a lot, try to win by even more. So that's just what we're here to do. But that doesn't have to mean that you are totally heartless, no empathy for your opponent. But yeah, Jon is totally within his right to try to run up the score as best he can.
I think a feeling that a lot of players might have instead of pity is feeling a bit sheepish. Just, you just kind of feel a little bit awkward that you're winning by so much against a friend or against anyone. And, everyone's battling and everyone wants the opportunity to win. And when you just, blow someone out of the water and they don't even have a chance based on the tiles, it can feel a little bit weird for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So once again, back to Jason. Good bingo tiles, but no bingo available for him. So he is now 8 turns into the game and has not been able to draw a bingo. The board has not been very good, but also Jon's been able to get a whole bunch. So it just has not been there. The timing has not been what Jason needed in this game. He plays G'd alongside Wafting underneath Monthly. That scores about as much as he can get. Undoubles his eyes. There are a bunch of E's left to draw. This seems like a solid play again by Jason.
This is a part in the game where it can be very hard to focus when you absolutely need to win the game. You know that you can't really win the game. There's almost nothing that you can do at this point to win, but you have to keep fighting. And Jason's doing a good job of keeping his composure and trying to do his best to make something happen.
Yeah, keeping the S there with his previous play. Elds is a word, so if he were to have drawn something starting with S, Sackier is not a valid word, unfortunately, so it's not going to work out for him. Not sure if he has anything anywhere else. It's not that I see right now, but really this board is starting to become deader and deader. And if I'm Jon, I feel like a reasonable idea, maybe this doesn't actually help you that much, but I would be tempted to play Ryu right here. It blocks the M. Yes, it does give the R back, but at least if you force Jason to bingo off of the R, a lot of the time you're going to get counterplay along the triple back, and it kind of doesn't open the board as effectively as a bingo from the M would do. Plus, it undoubles your 2 R's and gets rid of your Y and U. So that seems reasonable, but you could use those same letters to play Ruby and just expose nothing at all on the board, continue to play inside, and Jon could send an empathetic message to Jason, Rafi.
He might be sending it to everyone who's watching, just saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry for whomping you," but yeah, now it looks like he's switching to potentially playing Murray off that M, which would be another solid play. And then another play that is an interesting kind of in-between play. It doesn't really get rid of 2 of the worst tiles on his rack with the duplicate R and U, but he could play Oyer parallel to B, making YEW for a decent score without opening up another spot on the board.
Yeah, all reasonable. I think Murray is even reasonable, despite the fact that, yeah, it does open this very nice double-double lane, which I feel like if Jon had 100 fewer points, you definitely wouldn't want to do that, but he's up by enough that it almost doesn't even matter if Jason has a really big play across those 2 doubles. He's going to be up by enough, and there we go. He draws the second blank. Maybe he's going to be happy that he opened that R. I I can at least see heroizes with a blank Z. Maybe there's something even better that hits both double word scores. But unless Jason finds a way to block that R, Jon could be bingoing again in this game, Rafi.
Yep. Fire hose is another option there. I don't see any double doubles yet, but it's gonna be it's gonna be pretty tough for Jason when he sees another bingo come down in a turn or two, to be down by 250 or 300 points. But sometimes it's just your tournament, and Jon is having the tournament of his life right now.
Yeah, he is doing amazingly well in a difficult field. Right now, he is ahead of defending champion Jackson Smiley, one of the top players in North America, if not ranked at the top right now, and Joey Krafchick. Jason Lee, his current opponent. There's only one fly in the ointment for Jon Shreve, and it is a certain bike-loving individual from New Zealand who has come to visit us again. Nigel, with a 21-3 record, and only because he lost 2 of his 3 games this morning. And there we go. Just the K fished off. Jason probably feeling frustrated that this is what it's taken for him to get a good bingo leave. But that's going to leave the R open. There were some plays, Rafi, that might have blocked it, such as KIR into the first R of Murray. That would have been a little more difficult for Jon to figure out a way to bingo. But I do think he's going to see either heroizes or the word you pointed out, fire hose.
And the silver lining here for Jason is that he will finally bingo on his next turn. But it'll be too little too late, but it's always nice to get that bingo down even when it's in a losing effort. And it looks like Jon has set up heroizes on his rack.
Or heroines.
Oh, yeah, that is very possible. He could do the old fake out and call the blank as Z out loud and circle the N, really throw his opponent off. But that would be pretty unethical. But anytime the blank can be multiple tiles, there's always the chance that someone misdesignates it.
Yeah, so we do have a view of that camera. I'm trying to figure out where I actually put that overhead camera view to figure out what this is. I guess all things being equal, if you were aware of both of those words, you would probably designate this as a Z to create fewer overlaps for your opponent. Only the A going under that in this lexicon. But yeah, Jason is getting a bingo, folks. Ironically, if he had not drawn into a Trezik, which he's surely going to see and play alongside the K, his best play, Rafi, would be tri-monthly.
Wow.
For 54. Wow. Which imagine if that actually, cool. If that actually mattered, that would be incredibly stylish to get that down in a close game.
That would be phenomenal to see. And unfortunately, he has the last T. So after he bingos, it won't even be in play anymore as an option. But yeah, anytime someone bingos on the opening turn, if you know the extensions to hit the triple, those can often be worth 40 or 50 points and are very useful to know.
Yeah, for sure. All right, getting the overhead camera here. It does appear that second blank is the Z. So heroizes is the play by Jon. So that is, again, even with that nice lead that Jon has, he is making the correct little nuanced decisions. And back over to him. And it's just that type of game for Jon. He drew the X after his bingo. And of course, Jason, I guess he would be unhappy to see Jason get a bingo down and cut into his margin, but he's going to get a nice big X play in response that he probably wouldn't have had. I guess the best he could have done would be to play something here. He's going to get 16 more points by playing it alongside a Trezik. That's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes it's your game.
Yep. When it rains, it pours, and it is pouring very, very hard on the head of Jason Lee right
Indeed. So a lot is going to be riding on the result of Nigel Richards' next game. So as you guys probably know, he is playing Annette Oberstad right now. We'll try to figure out what the result of that game is. The entire rest of the WoW playing field would cheer if Nigel lost that game. It would knot things up even more so. And it would amazingly bring Jon Shreve, after he's going to get this win in this game, he'd be within 2 games of Nigel with 6 to go. So definitely very possible to reel him in from there. As amazing as Nigel's result has been so far, he is not home free yet. And EX is the play by Jon. I wonder if he has something planned for his J here, Rafi.
Yeah, that was interesting. He was clearly deciding between playing the E or the O there. And one thing to note is that the only 2-letter word with the J is J-O. So he might be holding on to the O in case there's a good spot to dump it later. It just pairs better with the J than the E does. So it's possible that was part of his consideration.
I think
but there might be some other reason.
Yeah.
He was looking for Egido.
Yeah, it's these Ds that he wanted. Both of the Ds on Jason's rack, but had Jon drawn one, he would get a giant play, Ejido here. You can't play this if you use your O in this spot and keep the E. So very savvy choice, I would say, by Jon. Great recognition, actually, on his part in a game where he is up by way more than he needs to be to give that type of careful effort. So I'm pretty impressed that he came up with that nuance here.
That was incredible. That was a very, very solid play, and one that you can definitely miss in a game where you're up by so much and you can just autopilot your way to the win. So really, really props to him on playing the E instead of the O there.
Yeah, that is nice. Question from Heidi Robertson, my commentator from the first session. How stupid would it have been to play tri-monthly and go for a bingo next turn? And I think it is very much worth considering if you're Jason to get a 50-point play, leaving good bingo tiles. But I do think the score difference between those two plays is enough that you would just take your bingo and know that if you play tri-monthly, your odds of getting a similarly high scoring play as a Treesic next turn are pretty slim, but definitely worth a thought. And meanwhile, Jason looks like he's thinking about playing Evade. I think that's perfectly reasonable from him here. I guess if he's looking into this pool, Rafi, he might see the possibility of Equip going down from this E. That does seem like it's worth addressing, even if you... Oh, he's going to play Demi. Okay. Wonder what he's thinking about. That seems like he has a specific
he's thinking
goal.
About changing his mind.
Yeah. And he's changing to Emid. But I wonder why not just play Evade, which it seems like he's clearly seen. Does he have some plan for the V that I'm not detecting?
My best guess here would be that he is trying to avoid emptying the bag. With so much clunk in there, if he draws one fewer tile, then he has fewer chances to draw the Q. In addition, by not emptying the bag, it just makes Jon's turn a little bit trickier. Anytime the bag is empty and you have perfect information, then you can play a perfect game a lot of the time. But anytime there's one tile in the bag, it can be very hard to figure out the correct play because there's 8 potential options of what you could draw.
That makes sense. So just not wanting to make Jon's next move any easier for him. That certainly makes some sense to me. So Jon looking into a pool of some clunky letters, the C, the P, and the V, all sort of higher point tiles, nothing crazy, but I certainly don't feel like, first of all, the board doesn't have a lot of opportunities to even bingo or score. And yeah, secondly, I just think There's no real threat on the board that Jon has to block necessarily. So he can do almost whatever he wants. I would think that, he is going to play Sook. I was literally about to say the only thing I'd be thinking about it before playing Sook is that Jason could have an S, but I guess if he doesn't have a bingo, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and on a board that the Q just doesn't play much at all, scoring 22 for it and not getting stuck with it is pretty important. And so I think he looked at the pool and saw that there were no bingos available and decided, okay, I'm gonna just dump my Q, and so I have a chance to not get stuck with it later, given that the J is also very hard to play on this board.
Makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious how much energy Jason is going to spend on this end game, especially given the lopsided result in this game. And I guess if I'm looking at this from Jason's perspective, probably I'm thinking about the J and where can Jon play it. Certainly there is a simple place to just play Joe right here, but a much better place to play it might be emoji through the EM already on the board. That seems like a spot that might represent by far the highest scoring play that Jon can make with the J. So either I would like to try to block that, or I would try to leave tiles that force, if Jon is going to play this I would try to keep something that hits through the eye very hard to either disincentivize him from playing that word or be ready to strike when he does. I guess that's how I'd be thinking about this end game. How about you?
Yeah, it can be so hard. At this point, Jason might just want the game to be over and to spend more energy in a game that he actually can win. So in this position, I might be resigned to just trying to get through it and score a decent amount of points. But yeah, if there is a way to block emoji or to benefit from the eye in that triple lane, it would be probably best to do so, especially if there's a way to do it with an out and two.
Right. That's the tough part, just given how many clunky high pointers Jason has. Computer Engine wanting Jason to play help here, potentially to block emoji, but also save. Maybe if you can't go out, at least you save Vax and Sooks on a subsequent turn, which scores very well. It's possible that once you block emoji, or even if you allow emoji, Jon, with his 3 eyes, he might not be able to go out in 2 in this end game. So if you're Jason, there may be no great rush to make sure you can end the game in only 2 turns. You might actually be able to get 3 turns while you're at it. He's going to go ahead and play Perv up high. And I guess we'll see what this means for Jon. Is he has OG set up, Rafi. Pretty sure he sees it.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to plop down emoji. But that was a nice play too by Jason, because he's setting himself up for Scald to go out. So he did find an out and 2 with a tough rack.
Nice.
Maybe not the best sequence, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sooks and Scald will be an outplay for him. Technically speaking, looking at Jon's rack of GII, you may actually do slightly better to not go out with Scald right now. But as you said, I think anyone could sympathize with Jason to just get done with this game, spend the minimum amount of mental energy on this, move on to the next one, where, as you said, maybe he will have slightly higher winning chances from the jump than your opponent bingoing with monthly and then refrains immediately.
Yeah, tough loss for Jason. Very, very nice win by Jon. Well played game by both of them for sure. Can't really point to anything that was a big mistake. Yeah, they played great, and it just was unfortunate that it was a blowout.
And the final, which sorry to be slightly slow on the end game there, but the final score 546 for Jon Shreve to 329 for Jason. Maybe we'll cut to overhead mic and see what the players have to say. All right, well, looks like not a lot of discussion happening here. Maybe we'll give him another minute.
Thanks.
Jason wishing Jon good luck. Yeah, I think not too much to talk about with this game, as both players probably realize, Rafi. So maybe we'll throw it back up to us here. And yeah, tough one for Jason. It's always frustrating when you have a sort of a must win game for yourself and the tiles just completely do not cooperate from the first moment of the game.
Yeah, that's very rough. And I wonder if Jason is thinking about whether he should have tried waftings or not, because that was really the only way that he would have had a chance in this game. But I think there's a good chance that Jon would have challenged it off. He has proven that his word knowledge is pretty strong. And I don't think he's afraid to challenge if he thinks the word is not good. So that might have changed the game, but it also might have made him lose by more.
Yeah, for sure. Could get out of hand even faster. It's always tough, especially in the North American divisions where the challenge rule is the double challenge, where there's always a lost turn at stake. You're always thinking about, could I have tried something? Certainly not against, if you're up against a really strong opponent, the odds of those type of bluffs actually working start to get pretty low. But if you're against somebody where you don't really know for sure what their word knowledge is, or if you're against somebody that is not as incredibly experienced as most of the top players we've been watching, as experienced as they are, it's always on the table to go for it and try to play a word that either you know to not be good, or that you're not 100% sure and you're just going to roll the dice that maybe it is. It's easy to look back at those moments and say, what if? But yeah, it does. I do agree. It seems like Jon was very in control there, probably challenges, and the same result or something close to it would result there. So